There are so much things you can learn about yourself if you are willing to stay aware and conscious during your most difficult moments. And the lesson to learn always is becoming more and more simple. I have to remind myself to relearn the same lesson every single time. And whenever I recall it, it makes things easier naturally. You see, I believe that the source of suffering comes from resistance. This is not a novel concept, but it's experientially true if you think about it and put it into practice. What do I mean by resistance? Resistance is a position that you develop in your mind about how things should be, how things should appear in your life experience, which is perfectly subjective, right? So life is just this unstoppable flow. Like if you imagine a river, just the river flows, you cannot stop it. You can flow with it, and it's quite an enjoyable experience actually, because you don't have to spend a lot of effort, you're just flowing with it, you're going with the flow, as they say. Or you can try to, swim upstream. And swimming upstream becomes exhausting very fast. And swimming upstream is nothing unlike you trying to change things. From your mind's viewpoint, you want to change how things appear. The problem with that is structural, in the sense that you can never change how things appear, because by the time you realize them appearing, they're already part of the so-called past. Right? Think about it. If life is a flow, then every single moment we flow through life by imposing this perceptual filter onto it and engaging the mind in parsing reality, in parsing life itself, in parsing what happens out there in discrete, fine chunks of data that the mind gets to interpret. Right? The mind comments, the mind judges, the mind prefers things to be in a certain way or one or another, based on projections, based on just other previous mind constructs and mind thoughts, right? Mind produced thoughts. All these perceptual filters applied onto how things are nothing but artificial and fictional, ultimately, constructs. They don't exist in reality as such. Reality and life appears as it appears. It cannot appear different than it appears. But because we want things to be different, we live in this state of non-acceptance with how things are, actually, all the time, right? This non-acceptance, this default resistance, if you want, becomes the default normal state of living. Now, if you were to live trying to swim upstream, a very powerful, unstoppable river, how would that feel? Freeing or exhausting? It's so intuitive when you realize that this is the case. So, what to do about it? If resistance and mind positioning is not the solution, then you might say, okay, but how do I impose my own wishes and needs, and how do I fulfill my goals if I'm not taking action willingly into a direction, against sometimes what reality forces me to confront. I want a different path. I want to do different. Well, going towards a destination that you chose, choosing your goal and navigating towards it, see that word, navigate, it's different than fighting upstream and wanting things to be different. In order to get to where you want to go, you have first to be okay with allowing the stream of life in your life first, right? Recognize that how things are now, that life itself, that this flow is the primordial condition that enables you to do anything. Like, starting with being alive. Like, being alive is you being already on the river and flowing with it. You are flowing with it already because you are alive. You are part of life. You are alive, right? You are with it. However, being with it, in it, you don't like it there. You want it to be, you want to go somewhere else, right? You want to fight it. You want to do everything that you can to, to find another way, right? To find your way. And that's not possible. The game of life is infinite. We are finite players. So we are born, we die. We have our brief moment in the context of universal consciousness, right? And cosmic time. We have what, between 0 and 120. There is 20 years. It's not so much time. Right? If you think about the history of even of this planet of 4 billion years or something like this, if you just speed things up a bit, we are just blips like this, right? We appear, we disappear, we appear, we disappear. And this happens, this is the human condition, this is the human experience. We are here for brief moments, literally, in this cosmic, context. So we are in life already. We are flowing with it already. We cannot not flow with it. We are in it. We flow with it. Then, if you don't want to flow with it because if your mind says, I don't want this flow, I want a different one, that's an impossible situation that you find yourself in. And this is how you can get stuck, because you want the initial conditions ultimately somehow to be different than they are already, and they cannot be different. And your life is somehow, like a pattern, right? Like a finite set of discrete points of certain amount of moments, if you want. And this amount of moments happens just by you being alive, staying alive. These moments, they just pile up on your journey from the source, right? From your birth, from point A to point B. They flow, right? They are being counted. They are happening. These moments are being counted against the total number of points that you have, right? Until you reach point B, where the life itself as a game, the infinite game of life, continues, but you happen not to continue anymore because you consumed all your moments, if you want, in life. So if this is the game that you have to play until you reach point B, in which you are being exited of the game, out of the game of life, how can you play it better? Because resisting the game, resisting the flow of life, which is the game itself, is not the best strategy possible, because the game continues anyway, and you continue with it anyway until you are being exited from the game. So how can you actually cope with it, enjoy it, win at it? Well, we were talking about goals, right? And imposing, if you want, your own wishes into this life and in your experience. What is the alternative? So if naturally you are part of it, part of the flow, you don't have to do anything about that thing specifically. You are already flowing just by being alive, right? How then can you flow? Can you change the flow in one way or another? The flow itself, no. What can you do? And this is where I came up with this concept of a peaceful life, of a peaceful ambition, right? Because you might be ambitious and you want to do stuff, but you also want to cope with the conditions that you have now in your life. You want to deal with everything that comes your way, because that's part of your journey. The most powerful thing we can do, obviously, is to consciously engage the mind in a way that helps us navigate this river, this flow, towards a destination that we are choosing, but without forcing the time it takes until we get to that destination, or even that we get to the destination as such, which might sound paradoxical. How can I be okay with not knowing 100% that I will reach my goals? Well, reaching your goals is not as important as enjoying the journey towards your goals. Because the goals themselves, you have no guarantee that you can reach them if they are big, even if they are small goals, right? If you would say, okay, it takes me 2 days to do this, in these 2 days, I will fight, I will force, and I will reach that destination. You have really no guarantee that you can make it in 2 days, that you are even alive in 2 days. Who knows what happens, right? But non-resisting this flow of life during these 2 days, not resisting it, flowing with it, being okay with it, using your mind and thinking about, if you have to think about the experience as such, you can think about it in a positive way that helps you. That's more enjoyable. That's the actual fulfilling thing. Fulfillment comes from your own constructive interpretation of the flow of life. And your plans, your thinking, your judgment, your ability to analyze everything that happens still on this flow. And the only thing that you can do by thinking of it is to steer, right? To be on the same plane of flowing, but you can steer at this level, right? You can go on this side, you can go on this side, but you are still flowing all the time. You cannot change the flow, you cannot slow it down, you cannot do anything about it. The only thing you should not do is to try to swim upstream and be frustrated that you cannot. That no matter how much you push or try to fight the flow, you are continuing to go downstream with the flow, right? So this is resistance. Resistance is trying to change things, is trying to force a different way of life presenting itself. And that's not possible. And that's only the positioning of the mind trying to force something else, which is fictional. It's impossible. It's an illusion. It's the kind of illusion that we are forced to live in, unfortunately, by design, because we interpret what's happening outside of us through this perceptual filter of the mind, which is polluted ultimately throughout our own existence by everything that happens into the world, by interpretations, by beliefs that we start to substitute for truth. And then we start to judge everything against what the mind generates as artifacts about the world. But that happens also in the world, right? The mind generating things happens in life itself. This is what enables also the mind to think. Life, right? We being alive, we are enjoying everything that life has to offer, including the comments about life itself, right? So there is this strange feeling that you can change things, and this comes from the fact that we don't experience reality as it is, we experience it through the judgment and filtering of the mind. So if we are constrained to think in the boundaries of this closed context of the mind, then we continue to live in this illusion that life can be different, that things can be different. Life happens as it happens. We cannot influence that, right? And the moment we take control of that understanding, we can deploy the mind if you want. We can generate thoughts. We cannot generate specific thoughts, but we can maximize the probability that based on our own positioning and our own understanding of the mind's role, the mind will start to generate thoughts which are more conducive to a fulfilling and joyful experience of life. Because we don't resist anymore. We take for granted the fact that things are as they are, and we claim and own, and we become joyful for the opportunity to own the responsibility of the interpretive layer, right? Of the interpretation of what things mean. Because this is what we are doing unconsciously by default most of the time. And this interpretive layer is rarely constructive because the mind positioning and judgment is typically forcing an outcome that we artificially created, irrespective of reality. And this is the human condition. I think some people are more predisposed to live in their minds more than others. But that can become also the most powerful tool, right? Because you get to create framings and meaning and a very textured and colorful interpretive layer that helps you navigate everything in a way that's constructive and consciously chosen by you. So we started from resistance as being the cause of suffering. And this is something that you can test. Think or look into your day-to-day at things that you naturally resist and see how it feels. And then decide that you are okay with how things are, even for 5 seconds. Decide that you are okay with not forcing a different outcome and imposing a different situation onto the world. And you see how this resistance dissipates. Because what it means to be okay with how things are is that you are taking a short break from mindlessly swimming upstream, which is by default exhausting. Until next time, happy exploration.